What's up, everybody? It's K4K Crypto here, and we're gonna go probing deeper into this alien tech that we have on pulsechain. It's exclusively on pulsechain, guys. Um, we're making new all-time highs versus Pulse with pTGC and with UFO. Get into it. Let me show you the prices we are at today. We just passed the 2 Pulse to 1 ratio for pTGC. Like, I think it was 11 days ago, it was 1 to 1 was the new all-time high. So it's been 11 days and now we're at 2.0. So you doubled your pulse if you held for basically less than 2 weeks. Um, so in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more in the abstract of things, since you guys already get the idea that this is a really well-functioning system, but I'm going to talk about it even more. And then here's UFO, doing super well. And let me just show you this really cool statistic for UFO. We have all these LP pairs paired with Richard Hart tickers, and there's extreme liquidity in them. So UFO versus Pulse, there's 500K, UFO Die 560K, UFO pTGC 300K, UFO pulsex 300K, UFO Inc 220K, UFO Hex 229K, UFO Hex from Ethereum 157K. And then there's even some more little ones that are like 30K, 30K. That is a lot of liquidity, guys. Um, so that's great for people who want to get in and get out because you have more coins on the market to soak any sort of sell, and there's also lots there in the V2 liquidity for people to buy. So pretty sweet. That's all community owned liquidity for UFO, whereas pTGC is mostly protocol owned and burnt because of the buy and burn and the LP ads that also burns its control. So, probing deeper, guys. Like, imagine if Hex had a 1% buy and burn on all the volume that it's had since launch for 4 years. So I did the math on just if Hex only had 100,000 um, volume each day for 4 years, basically it came out to a 1% buy and burn would give you around $3 million of basically extra value added to the liquidity pool. And that's just on 100K a day, which during like the top of Hex, there was like millions of dollars of volume. And the price would have just been at, I think, a better rate than it is today if we had these extra millions of dollars just added to people, because it would reduce the amount people have to sell as well, because they'd have 99% of their bag instead of 100% to sell. Um, and if it's on buy and sell, then you actually get to charge them 2 times, which is how it works in pTGC, because you pay the tax when you buy or sell or transfer. Um, let's see. One thing about Hex is that it has a lot of inflation. And yes, T shares are deflationary, so there's less people getting that inflation like over time. It's harder to get the inflation. But all of that inflation eventually comes out and it hits the chart. It hits the market. So an easy way to break this down is if you buy $100 worth of Hex, and even if the price stays the same, say you stake it for a year and you get 10% more Hex. That's kind of what the APY is around right now. You put in $100 worth, but you're able to sell later $110 worth. And so the only way the market can absorb that is if the price goes down. And nobody likes price down, right? So basically you'd have to have more people come in to purchase up the coins and add more like value to the liquidity pool to mitigate that 10%. So you'd have to have like 10%. It's almost like you basically need more buyers in order to fulfill the APY that's being paid out in inflation. Otherwise, you get down price on the chart. And so Hex kind of has a leaky boat in that way, where there's constant inflation coming out, but not necessarily a huge influx of value going into the liquidity pools. Now it keeps the liquidity pool pretty like low, like there's low liquidity in Hex, which means the price can go up very fast, but it can also go down easily as well. So Hex, in a way, I'm just talking about Hex so that we can then get into the comparison to pTGC and UFO, which are both deflationary. Hex originally was the first certificate on the blockchain. So it was copying what worked in the banking world and then put it on the blockchain with the trustless yield, which was revolutionary at the time, and still is. It's still the Hex certificate on the blockchain. But the thing is, in crypto, you don't have to follow the rules of what the original bankers did because that whole system is collapsing. The whole banking system, it's built on inflation, and who gets the inflation first, they get to dump on everybody else and buy up all the real stuff before. Like, if you're getting the inflation, inflation's great. If you're not getting the inflation, inflation's terrible. Um, and so Hex kind of copied what worked in the banking world, but it's almost like you copied something that's eventually going to fail, in a way. Whereas in cryptocurrency now, since we can create deflationary coins, we can actually create a more valuable asset than was ever possible in a bank. There's no deflationary asset you can get at a bank. They give you an inflationary asset because they can just print more money and then devalue the stuff that you're earning APY in. But eventually, it just all collapses because there's just too much inflation. If there's not enough people being born to work for these things, that they print the money out of thin air. Um, so, like with a deflationary currency, you're actually adding long-term value to the crypto. So if you hold something and it loses 10% of its, um, like there's only 10% less like the next year, you basically have a more valuable token in the grand scheme of things. If there's 10% more of the thing in a year than you're holding, you just lost 10% of your value. If you have a deflationary currency where 10% is depleted by the next year, you actually gain 10% in value. Um, so Hex kind of copied what the bank did, but banks have been scamming people for years, and copying that to the blockchain worked for a time, but it ultimately has the same fate, is what I'm kind of realizing. Um, now that we have the opportunity to have deflationary crypto, uh, let's just look at the chart. Deflationary crypto, we actually have a way to create something of extreme value. Deep, deep, deep value. Why do you think Richard Hart wants to have a deflationary pulsechain and pulsex now? I think he himself has realized, whoa, inflationary tokenomics don't super work long term. You have to have something to absorb all that supply, and if you don't have the demand, the price goes down. With pulsex, it only goes down in supply, and it's already burned around 5% of the supply, which is pretty sweet. Um, and it's just going to keep doing that year after year after year after year. As long as the blockchain exists, it's going to keep deflating. And so no new tokens are created. So you should see a price appreciation in a coin like that. And Pulse Chain is also deflationary. If there's enough volume on the chain, it'll burn extra tokens. Now, the we're kind of getting into the weeds here, but Richard Hart has realized the value of deflationary tokenomics, and we don't know what he's going to release in the future. Some little hopium, copium, but also quite possible idea is that Richard could release his own token and airdrop it to holders of his current tokens. And it could be one that's based on this fee system that pTGC has done, and you basically could see a huge hype cycle around getting RH tickers in order to get some of the new airdrop. I think that's totally possible if Richard wants to jump on this bandwagon of tokens that go up and down regardless of what the market's doing. If it goes up, um, we send value back to singular tokens based on volume and volatility. This basically solves the issue all tokens have, where if you don't have new users, the price will just go down because people just sell. But now that we have a token that goes up, whether we go up or down in the market, we're just seeing constant new all-time highs. Like these tokens are just, they're deflationary. There's less supply constantly every day that people are fighting over. Like if you go to, I think the last time I made a video for this stat, there was 8 billion uh, in the liquidity pool. Now there's 7.8. So the supply in the liquidity pools just keeps going down, and there's the permanent buyer every time there's a transaction with this currency. It adds permanent deflationary value to the currency. So whenever you buy, there's a 5% tax, right? And some people don't like that. They're like, oh, I have to pay it. But what you don't realize is everyone has to pay that, including bots and arbitrage bots. And so they're constantly adding value permanently to your chart and to your liquidity pools. 3% is basically bought and burnt um, in pTGC, and then 2% is sent as yield to everyone who holds. And so you're incentivized to hold, you're incentivized to hold long term, so you can gain more of a deflationary asset just by holding. A lot of people like to earn APY, and this token allows you to do that, but it's also deflationary. So there's actually no inflation in this token. So it's got a really strong boat with no leaks in it, and you're adding permanent buy pressure every single interaction with this token. And I just think that's super powerful. Um, like imagine if the taxes you paid in your country or your state, locally in your county, if what you paid in your taxes actually went back to roads, infrastructure, fire trucks, hospitals, um, raising money for medical research. Imagine if that's where all of your taxes went. That's kind of like how the tax system works in these tokens. It's going back to paying people to hold it longer, but it's always backed by more pulse going into the liquidity pools to back up any sort of payout. So anybody that gets paid out, even if they sell all of it, there's more than enough pulse in the pools to pay you every single day. Um, so that's how I think about these tax tokens. You're constantly earning more of a deflationary asset, so you're kind of dollar cost averaging in every single day to something that there's less and less of every single day, compounding. Um, Hex, unfortunately, with its inflationary tokenomics, you constantly need new buyers in order to add liquidity to the pool. So if you run out of buyers, you're kind of just, you got to see down pressure on the chart. Now we still have Richard Hart, who owns a lot of stable coins, and he could send that money wherever he pleases. So if he sends that into those liquidity pools of the tokens he likes, the ones he's founded, you could see large influxes of price gain in his tokens, which is great because even if you're holding pTGC or UFO, your liquidity is tied to all of his tokens. So if he ever puts any of that money into his tokens, it's technically also going into our tokens in the alien ecosystem. So we would love to see Richard Hart send some of those coins into the ecosystem. That would cause a lot of volatility and volume, which means we double dip and get even more value added to our currencies because the bots are going to fix the prices and they're going to have to pay to play because every transaction with these tokens, remember, it goes back to buy and burns, adding LP, and paying out rewards to people who are holding it. So people are disincentivized to sell it because then they're not earning any PY. And what are you going to switch it to? If you go and start holding pulsex or ink or or uh, or pulse, you might not be earning any APY on those. So you always want to hold something that's paying you APY because if you're not, you're just slowly losing value. Um, it's just so amazing that there's a currency out now that you can hold it, stake it, earn yield. There's no inflation, so nobody's getting cheap new coins for, just waiting or doing nothing. It gets paid out because people are paying fees because that's just how the system works. You're just It's really amazing that it has pretty much everything you'd want in a coin and it's still so early. Like it's only 19 million market cap today. We could see this one going to $1 billion market cap. That's not too out of this world to see meme coins go that high. And this coin is very memeable, even though it's not a meme token. It has great utility. It makes money off of the market going up or down, which I've never seen any other token have this type of liquidity and be so early to it. It's like you can still get dolphin and shark positions for, a couple grand. Uh, so yeah, that's me diving deeper a little bit today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Aliens, we're out.